Some very interesting dynamics are happening right now to the California housing market. I'll provide my own analysis looking at home prices over the past several years and also how this compares to 1 month ago and also a year ago as well. We're going to talk about home prices, housing inventory, home sales, price reductions, and much, much more based on the latest data we have from the California Association of Realtors just posted, I think it was yesterday. In any case, I appreciate you guys so much for joining me in today's video. Please like and subscribe, and of course, reach out if you guys are looking to buy or sell a house here in California. So let's talk about the latest trends, and let me give you a general snapshot of California. So this is for the month of November, looking at existing home sales, excluding brand new home construction. Sales increased by 19.5% compared to November of 2023. That was the biggest year-over-year increase since June of 2021. California's, as a state as a whole, I'll provide a separate video looking at trends at a county-wide level in California. But today's video is only looking at California as a whole. So California's median sale price in November was just under $853,000. That's up 3.8% year over year. The month supply is at 3.3 months. That's up by about 14%. Days in market's up about 24%. It's still taking about 3 weeks to sell a house right now at 26 days. Okay, let's take a deep dive into home sales in California. So again, that increased by 19.5% year over year. That's the biggest year-over-year increase again since June of 2021. Something that really caught my attention as well is that we're talking about stats in November, right? So the month-to-month change is a change in sales from October through November. But despite the fact that rates increased so much in October, because of course October's rates is when home buyers got their offer accepted, then it becomes a closed home sale about 1 month later. So talking about the median sale price, closed home sales in November, that's really what a housing market was like in October. So this is pretty remarkable that sales increased by 1.1% this November compared to October, because we should expect to see a decrease, not an increase. They also break this down by price range as well. This is a common trend we've been seeing for quite some time. An uptick in sales at the upper range of the market and a decrease in the lower range. So sales increase in the range of 14 to 16% for houses that sold this November in the range of $500,000 to about $2 million. But the biggest increase from 1 year ago was actually sales over $2 million. That surged by 24%. Whereas sales in the range of $300,000 to about $500,000 increased by less than 5%. And of course, we're seeing a lack of sales for less than $300,000 in California. In fact, sales for less than $500,000 represented about 23% of home sales this November. 1 year ago, we're at 26%. In contrast, sales over $1 million was approximately 34% of all home sales this November. So nearly 1/3 of all home sales in California were for properties for over $1 million. Another way to look at that is this right here. Sales for over $1 million was about 34% of the pie, whereas sales for less than $500,000 was only 23%. We have been seeing more sales for over $1 million than sales for less than $500,000 ever since really the beginning of this year. This is much different compared to pre-COVID. So for example, back in May 2019, the share of houses selling for less than $500,000 was approximately 48%. In contrast, sales for over $1 million back then was less than 20%. Before we talk about home prices, let's talk about pending home sales, a measure of home buyers getting their offers accepted. This is an indication of closed home sales in the next 1 to 2 months. In California, on average, it takes about 30 days to sell a house. So you get your offer accepted, about 30 days later, you get your keys to a house. So pending home sales in November is really going to impact closed home sales in December. So pending sales increased by 16.3%, a double-digit increase compared to 1 year ago, but a deceleration compared to the previous month. So this could mean that closed home sales in December could increase further compared to 1 year ago. All right, I have a lot to share regarding home prices. If you guys follow the channel, you guys all know I'd love to share my own analysis of their data. So first, let's share a snapshot here looking at California's median sale price at $852,880, a decrease of 4% from 1 month ago. So from October through November, California's median sale price decreased by 4%. I'm going to provide some data, go figure, how this figure is actually much worse than historical averages. Home prices tend to decrease in October through November, but this decrease of 4% is quite unusual. I'll share my thoughts regarding that. In regards to prices from 12 months ago, it rose by 3.8%. Also, that marks the 17th consecutive month in which home prices, based on the median sale price, rose compared to 1 year ago. All right, so here's my nerdy analysis of their data. By the way, I pulled these two columns from the California Association of Realtors website years ago. I just add on to this and provide my own analysis in these other cells. So anyways, at 852, let's just call it 853,000, that is actually normal to see prices decrease compared to October. But again, the decrease of 4% is quite unusual, much worse than historical averages, which I'll share with you guys here in a little bit. In addition to that, at 852,000, that's the lowest level since February this year. Back then, we're at 806,000. Back then also, we're up by 9.7% year over year. Now we're only up by 3.8%. So I have a lot to share about this. So this is obviously a deceleration from last month. So in October, compared to October of 2023, prices rose by 5.8%, whereas this November, it decelerated to 3.8% year over year. In addition to this is about half as the long run average. Historically speaking, based on my nerdy Excel formula there, the average change in November year over year, going back all the way until the year of 2010, is an increase of 7.7%. How insane is that? Prices tend to increase, or I should say the median sale price tends to increase by nearly 8%, whereas this year it only increased by 3.8%. So the 17th month of increases, but we've been seeing this kind of deceleration ever since really, when was this? Back in May, we're at 8.7, then we went to 7.5, 6.5, etc., except for this blip in October where we saw prices increase, which was highly unusual due to the fact that mortgage rates decreased to a 2-year low in September, causing prices in October to increase quite a bit. That's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, why we saw this big decrease down by 4% compared to October. So let's talk a little bit more about that. This decrease of 4% compared to October is far worse than the long run average. The long run average from October through November each and every year since 2010, based on my formula, is a decrease of 1.4%. This year, it fell by 4%. This is quite the turnaround compared to October, though. Back in October, prices rose by 2.4%, whereas the long-run average was a decrease of 1.3%. I'll repeat that. This October compared to September, prices rose by 2.4%, whereas the long-run average is a decrease down by 1.3%. So it's normal to see prices fall in October and November, but it actually was a reverse in October this year. Also, I did some digging for you guys as well, looking at trends going all the way back until the early 1990s. A decrease of 4% from October through November is actually the worst decrease since November of 2008. In other words, it's normal or seasonal for prices to fall from October each year, again, down by 1.4% on average, but this year's 4% decrease is more than twice as bad. So why is this? Here's my personal opinion. Leave me a comment below with your thoughts regarding this. So my opinion why we had this sharp pullback in prices this November compared to October, down by 4%, is due to a multitude of reasons. Part of the reason is due to the fact that prices rose in the previous month. So prices rose again by 2.4%, highly unusual because prices tend to decrease during that time frame. So for example, the September to October price gain was the largest in 45 years. Highly unusual. And again, the increase in October was likely due to the fact that mortgage rates on average, according to Freddie Mac, decreased to a 2-year low in the previous month in September. So because of that, a lot of people went out to buy houses, and of course, prices rose in October. Therefore, it's not a big surprise, in my opinion, that the median sold price decreased so much in November compared to October. Also, mortgage rates rose sharply in October, which caused the share of houses selling over the seller's asking price to fall to a 10-month low. So in my opinion, this decrease of 4% is due to the fact that prices rose so much in October, again, very unusual. And on top of that, because of mortgage rates increasing so much in October or the previous month, which caused home prices to fall by 4% in November. But wait, there's more. For comparison's sake, I want to kind of share the biggest increases in prices year over year, and also the biggest decreases, and how the month supply compares as well. I'll share the month supply this November as well. So the biggest increase since 1991 is a giant increase of 39.1% in one single year that occurred in May of 2021. Absolutely insane, up by 40% in one single year. Back then, the month supply was at 1.8 months. That was in May 2021. In contrast, the biggest decline since 1991 is a giant decrease down by 41.5%. That was back in January of 2009. Back then, we had a whopping 7.3 month supply. Do you guys see the correlation here? Well, the month supply at very low levels back in May 2021 caused prices to rise by 39%. In contrast, when the month supply spiked, in other words, it was a buyer's market in which buyers had an advantage over home sellers, we saw a giant decrease down by 41.5%. Just for comparison's sake as well, the peak regarding the month supply was during the Great Recession back in January of 2008. So the month supply back then was at 16.6 months. So it makes sense that 1 year later, back in January 2009, the median sold price tanked down by nearly 42%. Also, for comparison's sake, this November, the month supply is only 3.3 months. Quite a bit higher compared to this very low level back in May 2021, but not nearly as high compared to 2009 or January 2008, when the month supply was at 16.6 months. In other words, back then, the month supply was about 5 times greater than it is right now. And this, of course, is one of the main reasons why we should not expect to see us giant decreases in prices like we saw in, basically during the Great Recession. Also, I want to share this as well with you guys. Looking at the year-over-year changes, looking at pre-COVID levels. So again, looking at the year-over-year change this year, we're up by 3.8%. This is quite a bit lower than November 2018 through November 2019, up by 6.4%. But it is higher compared to the 1.4% increase in November 17 through November 2018, but quite a bit less than the 8.8% increase we saw back in November of 2017. And again, much better than the 41.3% decline we saw in November 2007 through 2008. Also, this is one more thing I want to share with you guys. It's just pretty remarkable to see how home prices have increased so much over the past several years. So over the past 4 years, we saw a giant increase up by 22%, but from November of 2019 up a whopping 45%. And by the way, if you guys are looking to buy or sell a house in California, especially in the greater Sacramento area, then please check out my website, which is realestateteamfinder.com. My team and I are also licensed loan officers as well. So we'd love to help you buy or sell a house in California. And of course, especially in the Sacramento area, but also we cover the San Francisco Bay Area as well. I don't, but my team does. So anyways, let's go on to talk a little more about some of these other trends from the California Association of Realtors. And again, thank you for joining me in today's video. So here's a look at the sale price to final list price ratio. That's the lowest level since January this year. So the ratio is at 99.4%. This means out of all the houses, again, we're only talking about single family existing houses, out of all the houses that sold this November, they sold for 0.6 percentage points less than the seller's final list price. At 99.4, again, that's the lowest level since January of 2004. For quite some time, that ratio has been paid around 100%. It's lower than that, which means that on average, home sellers are selling their houses for less than asking, but not by a lot, only down by 0.6 percentage points. Now, speaking of that, the share of houses selling above the seller's asking price did decrease to a 10-month low. It's at about 37% of the time. So about 1/3 of the time, houses are selling above the seller's asking price. But again, this means in contrast that 2/3 are selling less than the seller's asking price. This is a little bit less than 1 year ago at about 40%, but obviously way lower than the craziness during the spring home buying season of 2022, when that ratio was at 73%. So it's basically reversed now, right? So back then, about 3/4 of all home sales were selling for over the seller's asking price. Now about 1/3 are selling less than the seller's asking. All right, let's talk a little bit more regarding inventory levels. Again, the month supply this November is at 3.3 months. 1 year ago, 2.9 months. It has been creeping up ever since really early 2022, but it's not nearly as high compared to the Great Recession, again, when it peaked at nearly 17 months. Now it's only 3.3 months. Another trend we're seeing right now as well is that inventory has been increasing, but over the past 2 months, we have been seeing a seasonal decrease of inventory. So inventory tends to kind of peak in the late summer months and then decreases in the winter months as less people list their houses for sale. So have been seeing this kind of decrease over the past couple of months now. Also, something that really catches my attention as well is that even though inventory has been rising for the most part this year, much higher compared to last year, not nearly as high compared to 2022 or the rate of change, the amount of houses for sale this November is far less than 2018 and 2019. So for example, back in 2018, we had around 55,000 houses for sale. Now we have around 40,000. So inventory has been rising, which is obviously good, especially compared to the lows we saw in early 2022, but we're still have fewer houses for sale compared to pre-COVID levels, unlike other states like Arizona, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, etc., that have more houses for sale compared to November of 2019. Now, speaking of that, active listings or house inventory, the amount of houses for sale has registered their 9th consecutive double-digit increase. So inventory is up by nearly 27% year over year. We have been seeing this kind of deceleration though, because the rate of change has been decreasing over the past several months. And lastly, let's have a look at the share of listings that have reduced their asking price. That's at 38.3%, which means that approximately 4 out of every 10 houses for sale have reduced their asking price. We have been seeing this kind of seasonal uptick this year, but look at 2022. Let me zoom in here. So back in early 2022, the share of price drops was basically non-existent at around 15 to 20%. But because inventory and rates doubled in less than 12 months during that same time frame, or during 2022, the share of price reductions spiked to about 45%. So it went from about 20%, let's say, to about 45%. So more than doubling in less than 12 months. This year, the trough was in early this year when the share was around 25%. Now it's only 38%. So we're not seeing a shock of our housing market like we saw in 2022, but we are seeing a seasonal uptick compared to years past. Also looking at pre-COVID levels back in 2013 through 2019, on average, the share of price drops was around 35%. So right now at around 38%, we're right on par with looking at pre-pandemic levels. With that said, if you guys got any value out of today's video, then please hit the like button. Also consider subscribing as well. Stay tuned for part 2 of my California housing market update I make each and every month for you guys, which will be a look at these trends looking at each of the counties here in California because, of course, real estate is local. Of course, check out my website, which again is realestateteamfinder.com. Hope you guys have an awesome day. I appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video.